Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming to this amazing presentation by our very own Diane Helentjaris. We have our member Stratis Aloimonos who's going to do the honors of introducing Diane and her speech. Best of luck. Over to you, Stratis.
Thank you, Andy. Diane is a writer, physician, and public health advocate whose work illuminates the lives of overlooked but remarkable women. She grew up in Medway, Ohio, and is currently based in Leesburg, Virginia, and draws on her rich background, a BA in interdisciplinary humanities from Michigan State University back in 1972, a master's in public health from the University of Michigan in 2008, and extensive experience working in the medical field to bring historical and human interest stories to life. Diane is the author of the recently published biography called I Ain't Afraid, The World of Lulu Bell Parr, Wild West Cowgirl, which is a biography of a Wild West performer. She was inspired to write this after finding out about Lulu Bell in a newsletter from the Medway Area Historical Association and was intrigued by the fact that such a daring, international touring Wild West cowgirl was buried in the cemetery of her own hometown. She felt this story was a perfect fit for her passion, rescuing overlooked, unsung lives. Diane has also written the historical fiction novel The Indenture of Ivy O'Neill, which won the Maryland Writers Association novel competition. Currently, she works on a sequel to that novel, which continues Ivy's journey, known as Ivy in America. Outside of writing, Diane is also deeply engaged in her community. She has held several different positions in the American Medical Women's Association, including as Program Committee Co-Chair, Program Chair, and President in the early 2000s. She's also currently the Treasurer of the Frederick chapter of the Maryland Writers Association. She's been known to conduct interviews at the restaurant Elaine's in Alexandria, where she brings her curiosity and warm presence to conversations that bridge literature, history, and the human experience. With a voice shaped by her medical and public health career, Diane Helentjaris offers readers stories of courage, resilience, and unsung chapters of history. I'm going to turn this over to her now, and we will see what she has to tell us about writing.
Thank you very much. I'm going to talk today about the use of images and pictures in your writing. And I'm going to focus on things that can be inexpensive and how you can use them, give you some tips and why they're important. So first, okay, all of us know how important a visual image can be and just the sheer power of one. And even though as writers, we're focusing on words often, images tell their own story that you can't really sometimes say in words. They're more nuanced. So for writers, you can use images to attract your readers. You can broaden your appeal. And you tap into maybe a different part of the brain with a visual stimuli. And more importantly, they can supplement your story, enhance it, and underline what you have to say. So I'm going to give a little backstory. I know Stratis talked a lot about what my history is, but this is the part that you might not know. When I was growing up, my father started out as a professional photographer, but soon figured out that it was a very low-paying job, and so he left that. But he always did a lot of photography. He was developing his own prints in the kitchen or in the bathroom. My mother's father did the same thing. So I grew up with the smell of developer in my nose. And as a little girl, I had my own camera. So I was pretty used to taking pictures. And then in 1986, I was one of the first American women physicians that the Chinese Medical Association invited to China. And I went, there were about 40 of us, and we were there for 3 weeks. Well, I took tons of pictures and brought them back to Ohio to have them developed. And the person who had the local photo shop happened to be a retired principal. And he was the kind of man, I think his name was Roy, who was an inveterate teacher. He lived to teach. So when I went in to get my slides back and my prints back, he said, and I had like a whole slew of them. He said, well, you have more pictures that are of excellent quality in this pack than I've got in the shop. And so he encouraged me to develop my photography. And so after that, every time I take slides in, he'd give me a little lesson, talk about color sense or all that sort of stuff, and encouraged me. So I started showing my photography in galleries, art galleries. And I did that off and on until I moved to Virginia in 1990. And when I moved to Virginia, I live in Leesburg, and it was rapidly being developed. It was a beautiful rural area that was undergoing tremendous change. Suburbs were moving in, farmland was disappearing. When I first moved, half the roads in my county were unpaved. And in the health department where I worked, half of our clients had no phone. So it was very, very rural. It was different, but I could see which way it was going, and I wanted to capture that with my camera. So I started taking a lot of pictures. And of course, I continued to show these things in galleries. Here's some of my photos here. People knew that I did this, and a magazine was started around, I don't know, 2000. And the whole goal of the magazine was about Loudoun County. And so they asked me to take photographs for them. So I took pictures. Of course, at the time, I'm a physician, I'm working public health, and this was just a thing I did on the side. They asked me, well, at some point in time, I figured, well, if I write this story, I'll get paid more money. If I just take the pictures, they just pay you for the pictures. If you write the story and take the pictures, that's more money and it's more fun. And I had always written things. I'm a humanities major, so I started writing as well, and did that for years. So from that, I've continued to write like for regional magazines, and the magazines have come and gone, but I've had a lot of fun, and it gets me out in the community, and it helped me learn how to work with publishers and all that sort of thing. I also provide stock photos to Getty Images, and I donate images to an organization called Unsplash, and I'll talk more about that later. But that's kind of my background in mixing writing and photography. So as writers, if you only write for yourself and you only write for entertainment, you possibly could get away with not having any pictures at all. But most people eventually, even if they have a small audience, want to publish a book. And at the very least, you're going to want to have a book cover with an image. And you want to think about how you're going to do that and how you're going to pick that. The cover, some people like to do self-publishing and make their own cover. And one of the issues that comes up is, are you making the cover for yourself, and what you like to see? Or are you targeting your cover for the audience you want to have enjoy your book? So personally, I'm a fan of using a professional designer to design the covers. But if you're going to pick your own cover, you might think about things like the cover is going to signal how professional you are as a writer. It's going to attract readers, and it's going to position your book correctly in your genre. So each genre has its own style. So, for instance, some of the romantic books, they always have a guy on the front, and maybe he's bare-chested, or maybe, or they might have some of the historic novels. Typically, they'll go through styles, and they may have like a woman seen from the back, You've seen all this, but they have just a certain style for each genre. So you want to have your cover match that genre as much as possible so it attracts the right person as a reader. And you also find that your cover will help justify the price. The thing that eats up a lot of pictures and images for most writers are promotion. When you have like a book event, maybe you're going to participate with some other authors at a local library and try to sell your books. And the library may or may not provide you with an image that you can use on your social media site. If they don't, then you can make your own. And these are just some samples of posts for social media. If you want, you can get access to Canva, Canva. And I've got a handout that Andy's going to share at the end of the talk that has some of these organizations and sources that you can use. But to make your own image for social media, personally, I use Canva. It gives you the option of making it in the right proportions for like Instagram or Facebook, but that's really how you can reach people, but you need images to do so. You can use this for merchandise or things for on your table if you're at a book event selling your book or trying to sell your book. The other thing is you're going to need to pick a path for your book or your article, and that's revolving around your publisher. Are you going to publish it, or are you going to have another person publish it? If you have a publisher and you're not it, I would really encourage you not to purchase anything connected with illustrating your work until you've got a real thorough understanding of what your publisher expects. For instance, you might decide you want a map in your book, and you might think that you should go out and hire a cartographer, or you should draw this map yourself. Well, then you find out that the publisher has their own cartographer that they want to use, or they have their own illustrator that they want to use. So you really don't want to do anything connected with illustration until you've worked out the details with the publisher. And they vary. Some are extremely picky. They will tell you exactly how many pixels, what kind of resolution to have in a picture. Other people will just say, just send us your shots, along with it. So the communication is critical. Now, when you know that, for instance, that the publisher expects you to provide some sort of illustrations for either your article or your book cover, or that if it's an article or a book and they want illustrations, whether it's drawings or a combination of drawings and photographs, my strategy is always to send them more than they ask, okay? Because if you're in a partnership with a publisher, they have their own vision of what they want the end product to be. And by giving them more photos than they ask for, like let's say, I'd say 10% more, no more than 20% more than they ask for. That lets them have a choice, lets them put their imprint on it through the choice, okay? The other thing is when you submit photographs or pictures for your written work, in my opinion, you want to never submit anything that you don't want to see in print. Okay, so let's say you're writing this article and you've got you went out and you took photographs, or you managed to borrow photographs from people. If it's a historic thing, you've looked up all this stuff, and you have some pictures where it's just not very artistic, or it's an unflattering, there's maybe 5 people and one person has an unflattering look on their face, and you're putting together a package to send to be published. Don't send the one with the person with the poor expression, because invariably that will get published, okay? The loser picture will always make it in, and then you're like, oh, wow. So just send in high quality things and high resolution, which means sharp. That's all that high resolution means. It means a sharp focus. And talk to your publisher. I'm going to talk a little bit about tips. This picture I like. This is a waitress at a restaurant. I had a book club meeting, and the waitress said she'd take a picture of the group. Well, she had the camera pointed the wrong way, so she took her own picture. You want to make sure that you use high quality stuff and use the best image. Now, it's your responsibility as the author to make sure that any illustrations that you submit for publication or that you publish, you have the right to do so, okay? And so copyright means when I make a photograph, I have the copyright as soon as the photograph is made. I don't have to register anything. I don't have to submit it anywhere. It's my copyright. And so when I give that picture, okay, I give permission for sometimes, and it varies, one-time publication or forever publication, or I turn over all my rights to the person who's publishing it. But there's always a copyright involved with an artistic thing. Copyright expires for the producer at a certain period of time. So in the United States, it's so many years after that person is expected to have died. And what that means is most of the things published in the United States before, and it changes every year because they keep moving the date every year. I think it's around 1925. Most things before 1925 are copyright free or considered to be in the public domain, and anyone can use them. But things after that, you need to be careful and make sure you have permission. So this is why to get photographs or to get pictures or illustrations copyright free is so handy for a writer. And there are certain purveyors that only give copyright-free images so you don't have to worry about it. But you want to make sure that anything you have, you've clarified whether or not it's available to be used. And the other thing to understand is if somebody else owns the copyright, they will let you use it, and sometimes they'll charge you. Okay. And the charges may not be terribly high, or they'll just say you can use it and they'll give you written permission. So you want to get very clear on that. So to get an image, you want to use, as I said, the very best image that you have available. For instance, the pictures on the left are from my book about Lulabelle Parr. And the picture at the bottom is from a newspaper. And it was kind of fuzzy, and it was floating around. And pretty much anybody could use it. It was an old picture. But the picture on the upper left, the one I used in the book, was even sharper than this. And it was available through a museum. So I went with the sharper image because it looks better in the book. On the right, you see a poor quality picture at the top with Lulu that's kind of interesting because of the newspaper placement, but the one at the bottom is the original image. And again, that one, I had to pay a fee to use it, but it was a higher quality. So you have a choice with images. You can buy them, you can rent them, which means, use them once or twice, or you can make them yourself. So that's one of my pictures of a nearby little town. Now, to hire an artist, on average, artists make more money than writers. Okay. Sometimes you'll hear writers complaining about how much it costs to have an artist do art for them. But the fact of the matter is, if you look up the stats on what they earn, they make more per hour than a writer. You can find your artists through your local arts association. You can go to national organizations. There's illustration organizations. There's organizations for children's illustrators. Some of them have listings of multiple writers that you can look up, or you can go on Instagram. Instagram is a very visual social media site. So if you go on Instagram, you can follow certain artists and find one where you like their style, and then just contact them through Instagram, and usually they'll have their website. So that's another way to find an artist. This is Brian Whelan. He's a British artist. He was born and raised in London, but he's Irish in background. And for a few years, he lived near me. So I knew him. So I commissioned Brian to do that painting that you see of Lulabelle Parr. And then I've used it for promotional things. So you see on the left, I used it at an exhibit at our local museum about Lulu. And then in the upper right, I used it to produce some fabric that I then used to make freebies for a book launch. So you can do a lot of things, because I own the painting, I can do whatever I want, and I don't have to worry about copyright. And it's really nice partnering with Brian. Brian has gone on and reviewed my book, and he writes himself, so it's a lot of fun. The thing to know about using an artist is it typically takes a longer time. If you use a photographer, they go out, they snap the picture, you can do it fairly quickly. An artist might add 4 to 6 months getting your book done. Okay. Or that's how much time you would expect for them to take. If a book is heavily illustrated, and that generally ends up being like children's books, the expectation is for most artists that they're going to get half the royalties. So these are things that you'd want to talk to them about beforehand. The other thing to know is you wouldn't want to hire an artist or have an artist do a lot of artwork for your book and then go out and try to find a publisher, because a publisher might have other expectations, and they may have artists that they like to work with, or they want a certain look. So before you go down that path, unless you're going to self-publish, you want to clarify what the expectations are for the publisher. According to the national organization, it can cost $3,000 to $12,000 for a children's book for illustrations. Another thing to think about is that your illustrator is a collaborator. And so this is an opportunity to collaborate maybe with other groups to broaden the appeal of your book. If you're writing, you may want to reach out to other groups or people that you haven't typically worked with and get them to do your illustrations. Sometimes you may want to have a map in your book, and you may be tempted to draw the map yourself. There are actually cartographers, professional map makers that you can hire, or some people, an artist will sometimes do maps for people. Now, the other way to go is you can hire a drone photographer who will do a flyover of the area and use those photos and then label the sites. Okay. And you're seeing that now in Ken Burns's documentary about the American Revolution, using drone photographers to get a sense of the topography. If you hire a photographer, again, you want to clarify the rights. And typically, it'll be first-time rights, and then all the rights revert back to the photographer. If you rent an image, you can't. I'll go back to this. You can use stock photography. And what stock photography is it's a company that has multiple images, like usually thousands of images, and you go in and pick one that seems to be the best match to your needs. And you can do it by a subscription. You might pay so much a month to have access if you use a lot of photos, like an advertising agency would, or you can do a single purchase. And these might be as low as 40 cents to use a stock photography. You can also get access to I call it renting images from museums and universities. Universities are a good source. Other places to get images are ephemera. Ephemera is, by definition, it's things that hang around that weren't expected to ever last, like tickets to a rock concert. Or, as you see here, this is all ephemera from my book about Lulabelle Parr, and it's a rodeo program from 1924. It's a letter. The thing it says Pawnee Bill's Old Town is the back of a letter that he wrote to her, a menu, a photograph. These things I found when I've done my research are very helpful. They're useful as illustrations, and then they're useful as documentation. So the thing on the right, the Lamport and Holt line, list of passengers, these are things, I think I bought all of this stuff on eBay. I did. I got it on eBay. Most of it was not too expensive, but the list of passengers documented that the person I was writing about was on a specific ship on a specific date and exactly when that ship was coming in. I get a lot of information from ephemera, and it helps me tell my story. This is ephemera for a book I'm going to be writing in the future. And the person in the book is Chick Scoggin, and he had a jazz orchestra in the 20s. And these are just music sheets that, again, I got on eBay. Postcards are inexpensive. They help you illustrate, and they're helpful. Museums, you might not think about it, but there's a museum for Buffalo Bill's gravesite, which sounds like a small museum, but they have a big collection of photographs, and they're willing to let you use them either for free, depending on your use. Sometimes they'll be free to use if it's for educational purposes, but they charge if you're going to publish. So these are all from museums. You might not think about social media groups. You can go on, for instance, Facebook groups. There is a Facebook section that this nonprofit has, and the nonprofit is the 101 Ranch Collectors Association. And it's a bunch of people who collect mementos and memorabilia about an old time ranch that had a Wild West show. Well, these guys, they collect things, so they have a lot of pictures, and they helped me illustrate my book. Another collectors in general had other things that I used. Newspapers, again, because these are old newspapers, the copyright has been exhausted, and you're free to use these images in your stories, in your chapter heads, wherever you want. And these are some of the images I used. This is more stuff I got from collectors. If you're writing about something, like for instance, you might write about, a friend of mine wrote about trains in Japan, and he had collected over the years all these postcards about trains in Japan. And it was a very niche kind of topic, but he had tons of illustrations using his collections. These are from people, some of them from my hometown, who were interested in Lulubelle and went out and managed to collect some of her stuff. Other people were interested in her guns. And so when they went to an auction, a restaurateur from the East Coast spent, I think it was $60,000 at an auction to buy Lulubelle Parr's stuff. He really wanted her gun. She had a gun that Annie Oakley gave her, but she also had clothing and she had photographs in her stuff. And so he still had those. And so he was very happy to share them for my book. Sometimes you have to be a little more energetic in finding exactly the right illustration for your writing. Several years ago, I wrote an article about Seminole Indian quilting, which is just a specific kind of thing. And I had a hard time getting pictures because the Seminole Indians were not really very trusting of non-Indians writing about their stuff. So it was difficult, but I did get what I needed. And then later someone asked me to write another article about this. And when I went back, the tribe had changed their requirements and it just wasn't going to work out. So I went to YouTube and found a Seminole woman from Oklahoma who did this quilting that I needed and contacted her. And again, needed to have a long conversation with her. And then she shared her photographs that she had. She does really nice work. A stalwart is the Library of Congress. You can find map, articles, but also a lot of illustrations. And those are typically copyright free. You have to read the information to make sure. Another source that's just kind of my standard go-to is Wikimedia Commons. Now, when you find an image, you still need to read the fine print because sometimes it'll say that you can use this image as long as you credit the person or as long as you put in certain information as to where you got it and what it is. Other times they don't care. You can just use it. It's in the public domain. But you can get a really wide variety of illustrations. Unsplash. Unsplash is an organization. It's online. You can just look up Unsplash. I think it's .com. And what happens is when professional photographers go on a shoot, they take so many pictures, but they don't use them all. And one man had the idea, well, I'm not going to use these pictures. I'll just put it out online and let people use them for free. And so he had a tremendous response. And so photographers donate images. So they're copyright free and anybody can use them. And they're typically fairly modern shots. They might have models. These are the ones, the sardines are my, I guess they're anchovies. But anyways, two of these are shots I took and the one of the little girls somebody else took. But you can use these, no problems asked. And it's just very handy. And millions of people use these pictures on Unsplash. I think the sardines have been used, I don't know how many times. It's just amazing. Or you can take your own pictures. Nowadays, your phone is good enough. The phone you use, the pictures you get off your phone are actually good enough for publication, unless you have a flip phone or something really old. But like I sell pictures that I've taken with my phone to Getty. There's pictures in the book that were from my phone. So don't hesitate to use your phone. If you spend a little time studying some of the ways that you can accurately or best compose your pictures, it'll improve them. Just learn some basics of composition. Most of the time, the things that help the most are making sure your image is big enough in the frame. You want to be close enough. And then a real standard way to set up a picture is to put the focus in one of the if you split the picture into four equal sections, and you put your subject in the middle of one of those four sections, it'll make an interesting photograph, okay? Putting the subject dead center tends to be boring to look at. The other thing is to watch your background and not have extraneous things that detract, and take some time and crop your picture. You can do that. And the other thing is sometimes a picture that's not very interesting will look much better in black and white. Okay, it doesn't look like much in color, but like the guy, he's in Tombstone, the guy at the top, he's a reenactor. It's a more interesting picture in black and white. Now, Thanksgiving's coming, or at least, well, for I guess Sharon, you already had Thanksgiving, right? But there's another way you can handle your illustrations and your photographs, and you're hearing a lot about it. This is my husband. He's happy. He has a turkey. And here's my husband with AI. So people are really getting into AI, and as you can see, it spiffs them up a little bit, uh, but some people are really going to town and illustrating their articles and all that with AI. So that's kind of, I don't know. Do you have questions? I mean, it's hard to talk to people, and I'm not getting, I'm seeing your faces, but I don't know what you're thinking. I've got a handout for you that has some of these resources. I hope it's helpful. You can always email me or ask me afterwards. I'm happy to help you as much as I can.
Thank you so, so much for this wonderful presentation. You opened our eyes, our ears, and our imagination to so much that we can do with picturing your words. And a huge round of applause. Amazing. Thank you. I saw somebody raise their hand. I think, Poppy, you had something to ask? Please.
Yeah, thank you very much, Diane. I have used my photos in my books, and I have, because I was photographer, and I still take pictures, and I have millions of pictures, and that's my problem now. I want to keep them and organize them. How can I organize them? I still have the films.
Are they print or are they slides?
Some of them are printed, but I have some slides also, and I have also the negatives.
Oh man, I've got a bunch of those things too. I think you want to digitize them if you can.
So do I have to get the machine, whatever?
Well, if I may, since I'm an artist, I can tell you. This is Maria.
Thank you.
All you have to do is take a digital screenshot. If you don't know how to use Photoshop or anything else, you just take a screenshot. I use it many times.
Is this
it's Command Shift 4, and it gives you something like a hold on a minute, let me turn off if I can find it. Well, anyway, I don't, it's Command Shift 4, okay? And it gives you a sort of a plus thing, and you go all over the photograph that you want to take a photo of and do it and click on it.
Well, the other thing, Puppy, is there are companies who will do this. Like in Washington, Dodge Photo, they will put all your stuff together for you.
If you want to pay, yeah.
Right. I mean, you can unload it.
What I've been thinking when I go to Greece, to take them to Greece, because it's much, it's not so expensive.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that might work. So,
because I have to do that, and I keep in mind, I keep it in mind that I have to do that because I have millions of pictures.
Yeah, it's tedious.
I know. And I used for my 3 books, I used my pictures.
Mm-hmm. But if you can get a digital record, that'll help. And then you can share them with other people that way, like the screenshots too.
Is this special device?
I have a machine that I can use to scan my slides.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it wasn't cheap.
But if I have to do that, I have to buy it, or I can take them to Greece and ask.
Yeah, exactly. I do.
Because they're professionals too. They're good professionals.
Are you talking about slide transparencies like we used to have? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
You can scan those very easily, but it's better to have them done from someone in Greece, because you need to know what the DPI is and how to adjust so that you can get a clear transparency. You would need to know, as Diane said, how to manipulate the scanner to do it right. You have to take it off from the white thing that is done in and just put the transparency itself on the, it's not, I did it myself, but it's not easy.
I know.
As Diane says.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies. Any other questions or comments? Stella, go ahead.
Diane, thank you for all that information. And I feel you probably would know something that surprised me about photographs was the ownership, and you probably know this. And I'm asking for confirmation that whoever takes the photograph owns it. So if I give you my cell phone to take my picture, you own the photograph, is what I read. Have you come across that?
The person who photographs it owns it, yes.
Even if you use my camera, like...
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, that surprised me. So thank you for what you shared today. Very valuable. Thank you.
Well, thanks. Yeah, it's people get sloppy sometimes. They kind of rip off photographers, just taking stuff from the web is a real common problem, without crediting the person or asking permission. But if you just follow, it's not too many rules, but if you follow them, usually you can get really good things, and people are nice.
Right.
I like the idea, Diane, that you talked about using the cell phone as being good enough for photography. I always was curious about the quality because I have a Canon camera, and you know what I've noticed? You'll see yourself in the mirror, and then you take a picture and it looks totally different. No, really, you're bigger, you're fatter, you're darker, you're whatever. It just is not the same. And I'm wondering what's going on with photography. Is it the lens? It's just a weird feeling to see that. But like you want to take it, like roses, for example, is one of the pictures I like to take. And they look nice, and then you take it and bits of them are missing, or something's not quite there, or maybe the way the light hits them.
Well, the one thing to do is to not be afraid to mess around with the different options. When you put it on your phone, like the editing functions, you can change filters and it'll really change the way it looks. Like I talked about making it black and white, but like I used a Mac, and there's I think 3 different kinds of black and white you can use, and it really makes it different. So it's a lot of fun, but you shouldn't hesitate to do that.
Sure.
And I do find the phones, I think because maybe the real purpose is taking pictures of your food in nightclubs or something, they do really well in low light. You don't need much light to get a good picture with your cell phone.